The Tower of Claws, where our hero Krill, known as the most skilled sorcerer in the tower, suddenly stumbles upon his master lying lifeless on the ground with his sword beside him. Shock freezes Krill's body in place, but before he can even process, Azali, one of the strongest sorcerers of the tower, steps forward and desperately tells him not to look, just leave. Yet when he demands to know where the master is, she snaps, telling him to shut up and go, though his eyes catch her trembling hands mutating into claws as she seizes the sword, chanting a strange incantation, muttering the experiment has failed. And in a heartbeat, her whole body twists into a monstrous dragon before fleeing into the night, leaving Krill frozen in disbelief while the other sorcerers rush to strike down the beast escaping from their tour. But Krill unleashes his own magic just in time, saving her because he alone knows that the monster is Azali. And the burning question remains, why did she transform, and what was this failed experiment? Answers that lie buried in the continent of Kessi, where 1,000 years ago dwarves were hunted nearly to extinction by dragons who claimed dominion over the land, mingling their bloodline with sorcerers and humans. And somewhere far to the west in a place called Totokanta, two dwarf criminals, Vulcan and Dorton, are tied up with ropes of parsley while Krill chases them down with sorcery after they stole his money. And when Dorton, the weaker brother, pleads that it was only Vulcan who took the money, his brother spits curses at him for betraying his own flesh, yet Krill, fed up, demands his money back, strikes Vulcan across the face, and growls for him to pay up fast, just as a female officer arrives declaring she has finally tracked down these two crooks. But when the dwarves dart away, she pulls arrows from her hair and hurls them, missing completely because of their short height, and instead hitting an innocent bystander, prompting Krill to scold her while she throws the blame back at him for using sorcery in public. And while they argue, the dwarves slip away, leaving her embarrassed as Krill reminds her the man she struck is lying injured. So she admits she forgot those were tranquilizer arrows and asks him to heal him, which he does effortlessly, making her admit maybe runaway sorcerers like him still have their uses, though her word runaway lingers in Krill's mind like a sting, reminding him of his past in the tower, and later at a tavern where he sits to eat. A boy named Magic, the tavern owner's son, calls him by the name Orphan, not his true name, a title whispered among people for reasons yet to be revealed. And Magic gushes that he saw him using sorcery against the dwarves and thought it was amazing, while the tavern owner scolds his son, saying, "People like Krill always end up as failures." But Magic defends him, pointing at the pendant around Krill's neck marked with the insignia of the black sorcerers of the Tower of Claws, shocked that Krill actually trained under the best, calling him incredible. And when Krill asks if he wants to become a sorcerer, Magic pleads for training, revealing his mother was from a sorcerer's bloodline, so Krill agrees, but with the condition of being paid monthly, angering the tavern owner who shouts for him to leave his son alone. But Krill insists that Magic has the blood, the passion, and everything needed, urging him never to give up if he wants to be a sorcerer. And just as this fire of hope flickers, the dwarf brothers suddenly crash into the tavern, and Krill quickly dons his coat because fate has set the stage for his meeting with Maria from the wealthy Everlo family and her mother, a family whose fortune could change everything. And in that collision of criminals, nobles, and sorcerers, the path ahead twists darker than ever, because what happens next will decide both inheritance and destiny. Krill was still trying to deal with the dwarves' stolen money when the moment came to pay the tavern owner, but suddenly a girl named Cleome walked in, the second daughter of the Everlo family, innocent and kind-looking on the outside, yet sharper than she seemed, cheerfully saying she loved having guests visit their home, then bluntly accusing them of coming to trick her sister and steal her money, admitting she had been eavesdropping behind the door the whole time and warning them not to be fooled by sweet words about guests and hospitality, because she also overheard her mother and sister planning to call the police and fetch weapons from their armory to beat them half to death. And Krill, thinking quickly, claims they are from the Continental Sorcerer Association, sent only to observe how people deal with occupiers, trying to smooth things over. But Vulcan, looking like wrinkled parsley, blurts out that it was Krill's sorcery that brainwashed him, infuriating Krill, who lashes back with magic, yelling that he was trying to fix things and Vulcan was ruining everything like an idiot. Until Cleome interrupts, reminding them that fraud carries a sentence of 15 years. But realizing they are not mere swindlers, Krill undoes the magic effects and repairs the damage while Cleome mutters that another sorcerer had once come here long ago seeking her father's help, before explaining with a heavy heart that her father had died 2 years earlier from illness, and that those sorcerers were from a place called Tefrim, wearing a special kind of chain, which makes Krill ask if she remembers what that sorcerer looked like, and she recalls a muscular man with tied-back black hair, rough and ugly, who had come long ago, though someone identical to him appeared 5 years ago delivering something important to her father, and just then loud cries erupt from her mother and sister, sending Cleome and Krill running to the armory, where they open the door only to find Azali, now in her monstrous form, desperately trying to open a sword chest with her own sorcery to take the blade and escape. But while every sorcerer nearby attempts to attack the beast, Krill steps in with his own power and halts them because he alone knows the monster is Azali, and the mystery deepens. Why did she want this sword and what secret lies within it? Questions that will only be answered later, but for now the story shifts back to the Tower of Claws in the northwest of the continent, where the strongest sorcerers are trained under the famous teacher Childman, and among his best students were Krill and Azali, as we see during one of his lessons when fellow sorcerers like the red-faced Hartia and the girl Tichi are introduced. And Childman asks about Korgun, the gloomy boy who rarely appears at the tower, with Forte, the class monitor, explaining he last saw him reading books, and Childman assigning him training. Though Korgun politely refuses, prompting Tichi to tease him for being boring like an owl, while Komi, another student, steps up eagerly asking to train instead when Azali enters, laughing and playing with her magic against her classmate until Childman warns her that sorcery is not a game, only for her to suddenly unleash a powerful spell directly at him, which Krill quickly blocks to stop her, forcing Childman to tell her she will write an apology, though she casually dumps the task on Krill to write for her, claiming she is sick of writing apologies, to which Krill mutters that if she stopped causing trouble, she wouldn't need to write them at all. And though they are all talented, they are labeled troublemakers, especially Azali, who always stirs chaos. And as they argue, Komi excitedly rushes in with a strange mechanical invention, making Krill sigh that while others invent nonsense, he is always stuck cleaning up the mess. And then suddenly, the story jumps back to Krill with the dwarf brothers locked in prison on charges of fraud, where Krill dreams of his tower days, remembering his classmates, until Vulcan begs him to use magic to get them out, but Krill refuses, saying if he had wanted to leave he would have long ago, yet he doesn't want to be a criminal, while Vulcan insists their trouble began with the monster since everyone saw Krill talking to it. But Krill snaps not to call her a monster, explaining that most children are drawn to older girls who care for them, which shocks Vulcan, who realizes Azali must have cared for him when he was small. And Krill remembers with sorrow how they grew up together in the Tower of Claws with Azali and her cousin Tichi, all orphans who entered from the same orphanage, alongside many other sorcerers, until Dortnan, stunned, finally asks, "So that monster, she was once a human?" And Krill quietly answers yes, remembering with grief the moment she turned into the beast. Krill explains to the dwarves that he has been searching for a way to turn Azali back, but when she appeared, he realized he had no idea what kind of sorcery she used, and so he cannot fix it. And just then Hartia, the red-faced boy, arrives to take him from the prison and bring him before the master, where the teacher tells Krill that 5 years have passed, and Hartia adds that the master has finally recovered, which makes Krill remember those 5 years ago when the master was still unconscious and all the sorcerers gathered for Azali's funeral, though Krill refused to believe it was really her, even opening the coffin and insisting she could not be inside. But they told him her experiment failed, she turned into a monster and ran, and that this would forever be a disgrace to the tower. Yet Krill raged that it was no disgrace, declaring she was one of the finest sorcerers ever born, not only mastering black magic but white magic too. And Hartia tried to calm him, saying Krill had now become the genius of the tower, the strongest among them. But Krill bitterly snapped back that it was only because Azali never took the final exam, and when they lowered the empty coffin he cried out that if they were burying nothing, then they should bury him too, so at least his name would rest beside hers, vowing that no matter how many years passed he would search for her, and from that moment he called himself Orphan the Orphan, until he found her again, which is how his name was born. And snapping back to the present, he asks Childman what experiment Azali had tried with him, and the master reveals it was an attempt to awaken the sword Baldanders, the very weapon at the heart of this story. But the experiment failed. The sword reacted wrongly, Azali became a beast, and Childman fell into his coma, admitting he doesn't even know if Azali still remembers who she truly is. And when Krill presses why the sword was at the Everlo estate, Hartia explains it was Childman's order before his coma, that he had gone to the Everlo family himself to entrust them with the sword so no one else could use it, which explains why Azali went there, believing the sword could restore her humanity. But now the master warns that they cannot capture her, though Krill points out that if the master recovered from the coma, it is only because of his unmatched strength. Yet the teacher insists Azali is far beyond ordinary, since her mastery of both black and white magic gave her the terrifying power of time and mind control, and that to face a white sorcerer requires gathering many black sorcerers, including Krill himself. But when he asks Krill to kill her if needed, Krill explodes in fury, refusing to ever harm one of his own classmates, while Hartia insists Azali has gone mad, taken the sword, and run away, that if the truth spreads the tower will lose all authority, and this could even be Krill's chance to restore his own honor. Yet the master cuts them both off, saying enough foolish talk, and reveals he has already assembled a group of sorcerers to hunt the Beast Lady, showing Krill the device he secretly attached to the sword, which allows them to track her no matter where she goes, telling him plainly that the only way to see Azali again is to help them capture her. So will he join or not? and Krill storms off to prepare, though his heart burns with doubt. For would he truly go to kill Azali, or to save her? A question only time will answer. And before joining the group, he goes first to the Everlo estate to repair the destruction caused when Azali took the sword, where Cleom thanks him in surprise, saying she never thought he would come to fix everything. But he shrugs that words don't pay, only asking if she can offer him something in return since he needs money to cover his in-bill. And she blushes, admitting she has no cash but hands him a ring instead, explaining it once came from a sorcerer who visited and that her father had later given it to her, leaving Krill staring at the ring, sensing at once that it is far more than just a trinket. The ring Cleom gave Krill was the same one Azali had once spoken of before her transformation, a ring inscribed with ancient letters of the lost language Yurdgraf, engraved with the words, "Throw your weapon," a ring said to protect its bearer from disaster but only once. And Krill remembers how Azali had told him about this very ring, saying she was ordered by the master to decipher its inscriptions, warning him it might be dangerous but wanting to try anyway, because she was always reckless, always chasing trouble. And when Krill asked Cleom who brought the ring, she says it was a sorcerer named Forte, tall with long hair, which makes Krill realize it was indeed Forte from the Tower of Claws who had once visited with the sword. And Cleom suddenly asks if Krill himself is also from the tower, to which he quietly answers yes, adding that the ring actually belonged to Azali. And Cleom, shocked, says she overheard him call the monster by that same name the previous night, asking if the beast was really Azali. But Krill insists she is not a monster, then leaves the estate, vowing to Cleom that he will find Azali before the others kill her, that he will protect her no matter what. And meanwhile, the sorcerers gather with the master, joined at last by Krill, who is told he will lead the attack, though in truth he intends to reach her first and shield her, and among the gathered group stands a strange-looking white sorcerer. So Krill whispers to Childman, asking if this man can really stand against a white magic user.